Could not get any more special than it did this past weekend in the National Football League's divisional round weekend. Literally, 4 games, 3 of the games ended on a game-winning field goal, with 1 game going into overtime. We literally, I've said it many a times before. We've seen legends be made. We saw GOATs become either GOATs in a good way or GOATs in a bad way. You're either the GOAT or a scapegoat. But all in all, I think we were in for a real treat this past weekend when it came to postseason football. So let's get into it right away. The Productive Conversations football crew coming back at you to reflect on the divisional weekend and then say some words about the conference championship this Sunday too. So, as always, what's going on? First, let's introduce the great crew we have. Bryan McKeon's back. What's going on, Bryan?
Nothing much. Ready to talk about some football.
You know it. Alex Ranniello's here.
Back in similar fashion. Glad to see you boys.
All right. And then, of course, the great Tommy Brown's here with us as well. What's up, Tommy?
What's up, guys? Another great weekend of football. Excited to talk about it.
Let's jump into it. So let's go in chronological order. We'll start with on a Saturday afternoon in Nashville, Tennessee. We saw one quarterback enhance his stock. We saw another one essentially end his career. And then all the great storylines in between, from a returning Derrick Henry, who did make an impact in the game. And then you had lots of turnovers, but yet there was some good defense on the Titans end. And then it just got all sloppy and all things went crazy after that. But there was a guy named Evan McPherson who took care of business and had the game-winning field goal. We had the Cincinnati I did say it right. We had the Cincinnati Bengals defeat the Tennessee Titans in the first game of the divisional weekend by a final score of, wow, my thing just popped out on me, but we're still making a comeback either way. But all in all, we had the Bengals defeat the Titans in what was a hell of a game. Pretty sloppy, but yet lots of great things going on. I think we could go from the start. So let's start with it. What do you guys think about this game and how it all panned out for Cincy as they are going to their first AFC Championship in over 30 seasons? Joe Burrow made a statement. He's here. The Tennessee Titans, number 1 seed, knocked out early. And then as they lost 19-16, there's a lot to reflect on. So let's throw to the floor. What did you guys think of this game? You like it, dislike it? What you get out of it?
Shock. Absolute shock.
What made it so shocking?
You would think the return of Derrick Henry. I was expecting some rust, but he played okay. I'm just shocked that Ryan Tannehill in one season's time could change so drastic in his decision making and just the amount of turnovers he has.
Yes.
The Titans defense gave 9 sacks. I think it's the NFL playoff record.
Mm-hmm.
And you throw 3 interceptions. You literally threw away the game. This game should have been, 16-3 if you don't throw all those interceptions. You know what I mean? You're giving that team 3 other chances on those turnovers, and I give it up to the Bengals. The fact that Joe Burrow put together a good game with getting sacked 9 times is amazing. But the Titans really handed this game to the Bengals, I feel, just with the amount of opportunity and just amount of times on offense, actually, make plays and stuff like that. So very shocked, but, it's going to be a high scoring game, I feel, with the Bengals Chiefs now, just because of the 2 high octane offenses. So we'll see.
Oh, the pain. Yes, I think a big highlight here is the disappointing performance of Ryan Tannehill. And just look at some stats: 50 for 24 with only 220 yards. And as you said, the 3 interceptions is a killer. And I think he ran out of lives, unfortunately. He was a cat and hit his 9th life. And it would be hard for him to find a starting position in Tennessee now. What do you two think, Tommy and Alex, of this game as well? What other things can you add?
No, I agree with Bryan. It's shocking, but at the same time, not really, because the the Titans coming in were the number one team in the AFC. So you thought their offensive was going to be a lot better, but 3 picks and 9 sacks, really bad. But at the same time, the Bengals and Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow's here to stay. I'm hopping on the Joe Burrow bandwagon. I really think he's going to be a special player in the league for years to come.
Yeah, that may be their division to win every year for the next few years too. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with what both, you and Brian said. Tannehill threw the game away, and it's tough to watch the roller coaster that he is coming over from Miami, basically recreating his career under Arthur Smith and Vrabel, in the past 2 years' time, and then just having this huge demise, 3 turnovers in one game, 15 of 24 for 220 and a touchdown. But it feels like as a number 1 seed with all that time off and the adrenaline and the momentum that team had, I think the last thing outside of Derrick Henry was I think the last person that needed time off outside of Derrick Henry was Ryan Tannehill, because when you're on a roll like that and you're asked to do so much, you want to keep that ball rolling. You want to keep momentum going into the playoffs, and you don't want to break stride. And I think that they got caught flat-footed in the first half. I think their offense stalled. And when you change your entire game plan from the second half of the regular season, where you're more leaning on Tannehill to carry you, to win after win every game, week after week, and then you basically reduce him to a game manager where he's just making crucial throws in timely places, and you're realigning yourself with Derrick Henry in the backfield. That's kind of a hard turn. That's a hard pivot to make. It's almost like stopping a train that left the station on halfway down the tracks. It's a really hard ask to get to get, and but the only 2 things that the silver linings that I take away from, if you're Tennessee, is AJ Brown is an absolute stud. I mean, he went 5 for 142 and a touchdown, and I think they have a really nice counterpart to Derrick Henry with Foreman. I mean, like I said, he only had 4 carries for 66 yards, but he really had some serious breakaway speed, and they may choose to co-align those guys in the backfield in their offense for years to come. Seems like he's somebody that they can kind of rely on through the regular season.
Yeah, but that's what Brian wished his Cowboys did when they had 2 stellar running backs. Yeah. But yeah, and that's still really solid. 4 carries for 66 yards. I mean, he had that huge 45-yard run in the game, and I mean, this guy is this. It's just, if they just had a quarterback, the Tennessee Titans would be probably in this game. There's a good chance for that. But, I mean, you're already in the top 4 of your conference already, and there's no reason why they can't make a push. And like I said, I think we could all agree that it's over for Tannehill. Time to hit the restart button. I think Mike Vrabel coached a good game, and you could say we could say with him, but Brian, you had your hand up. What, you got something to say?
I don't think it's over for Tannehill per se, because I think we got to think about it like this. In 2019 and 2020, he threw 22 touchdowns to 6 interceptions and 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. And then, so 13 interceptions in this season, he had 14. I think it comes down to this season is the fact that he lost Arthur Smith, and there really wasn't a consistency of chemistry in the receiving core for him and for Tannehill and his boys, besides AJ Brown, just because Julio was constantly hurt.
Yep.
They don't have a true number 3 receiver, and they lost Janu Smith. So I think this free agency, I also think just based on cap space with them and the amount of players they need to pay on defense and the offensive line, and then eventually now with Derrick Henry's going to have a contract coming up. I think Tannehill might be the only option just due to financial reasons, a middle of the pack quarterback. You got to also remember he was 8th in the league in QBR rating this year. So he is efficient. It's just, I think he needs more chemistry in the system right now. So I still think they give another year flyer on him.
Yeah.
But if they could try to get like David Njoku as a tight end, as a free agent this offseason, and maybe try to find themselves like a good slot, I think they might be able to help him out more. He just needs a more consistent, maybe another offseason in the system might help him.
I think, another year in the system might help because they lost LaFleur, and then the year later they lost Arthur Smith. That's a lot of change in a short amount of time. And I think, I
Still
agree
winning
with you,
too.
Brian.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And I think what you're alluding to, Brian, is kind of the point I was making, which is, you're asking him to carry the franchise after Derrick Henry's injury, but then you're trying to reduce him back down to game manager in 2 weeks off of a stretch where you're trying to, pivot your identity on offense. And that's a lot to ask for a player like him. So when it is time to make those crucial plays, he's not really that guy that you were expecting him to be. So I'm not letting him off the hook. I think, there were huge blunders and the biggest opportunities on the biggest stage, but it's a lot to ask just to scrap, your starting quarterback who's achieved so much in a rebirth in Tennessee. And also, I mind you, it's a lot harder to get a new serviceable quarterback when you got Indianapolis now on your heels every year in that division.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we know that is the weakest division in the NFL. Essentially, you can make the argument next to the NFC East, and they're just incompetent. But on a pure talent level, it's that. And yeah, so lots to digest in that sense. But the other thing I want to just focus on with this game before we move on is, again, hitting on Joe Burrow, who threw 348 yards, no touchdowns, but, still cut them throughout, was able to get him in a good field goal position for Keith McPherson to knock in that game-winning field goal. And then, Tommy, we heard your emphasis on Joe Burrow. You're hopping on that Joe Burrow bandwagon. Is there anything else you can emphasize on this and, what you see for his career long-term at this point with the stellar weapons they have with people like Jamar Chase and Higgins and Boyd and stuff like that?
No, just Joe Burrow. He's always played with that chip on his shoulder ever since college. Like it showed that from his last year in college that he can play at the highest level. Well, for college at the time, but he can win championships for your team. So Joe Burrow, he got the Bengals' first win in 31 years, not just one playoff win, but 2 playoff wins in 31 years, which is really cool, really awesome. So he's going to continue to wow me, I think, and he's going to do some good things in the NFL.
Awesome. We'd love to hear that insight when we preview the conference championship and how you think he'll do on Sunday. So let's talk about the next game, a game that may change the NFL perspective. We had the San Francisco 49ers go down to Lambeau, and ultimately in a battle of special teams, they won 13-10, knocking out the number 1 seed Packers, ending Aaron Rodgers' season. And they're keeping up their magical run. Jimmy G wins another playoff game, everybody. He's playing in his second conference championship in 3 seasons. Oh, what a game to digest. Whether you can talk about Aaron Rodgers, laying a duck in this game, did not play his best game. We could talk about the catastrophic block punt that took place in their own end zone that led to a touchdown. And then it was a shit show from there. I think this was a game of where the Packers gave it away. You talked about how the Titans gave away the game against Cincy. I think the Packers gave away this one, especially on the special team side. And who would have thought? I'm just saying, who would have thought? And an okay Aaron Rodgers game with 13-degree weather, little snow would not be good enough for him. And Jimmy G takes it. No touchdowns for him either. He did go 11 for 19, 131 yards. But as I said, good running game that took place with Evan Mitchell, and then a lot to digest as San Francisco moves on. Where do we start? Before we do like a lot of people are doing, talk about Aaron Rodgers in this. Obviously, he's the big thing to talk about in this game. Why don't we just talk about what went wrong here? What went wrong for the Packers and what went right for the 49ers?
Well, I'll go first. Well, definitely the special teams was the biggest part of the game. George Kittle said coming in the game, it doesn't get better. 13-degree weather, snow, and Lambeau in a playoff game, it doesn't get better than that. So I think it was going to be a low scoring game coming in because of the weather. So things like the special teams, you're going to need people, or you're going to need the special teams to step up for the offense not producing as well because of the weather. So the special teams was definitely, obviously it was definitely the biggest part of the game, and the reason why the 49ers won.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't say it any better, Mr. Brown, with that in that coldness. Bryan, what did you see? What did you really get out of it? I know that you had a lot of good things to say about San Fran coming into this game. It seems you're right on. So how are you feeling about hitting this one?
Yeah, so I was mentioning to you, I don't know if I did in the first podcast or just over texting a couple weeks ago. I always thought that San Fran was going to be the dark horse Super Bowl team, just because of the way their style of play, their defensive schemes, and their offense. In my eyes, it doesn't rely on the quarterback, which I like, because you don't need to rely on Aaron Rodgers to make, like the Green Bay, to make all these crazy plays and stuff like that we know Aaron Rodgers does. They rely heavy on the run. They have a good ability they have a number one receiver who also could play running back. So they have good scheme with that. So they have a lot of different moving parts that allows them to manage a game correctly. And their special teams are phenomenal. Like, I'm looking at the play-by-play right now, the first half. And in my eyes, this is the only reason why, San Fran stayed in the game. And it was just due to the fact that the special teams and the defense for San Fran held out so well. So when touchdown Green Bay, San Fran punt, Green Bay fumble, punt, San Fran interception, end of half, Green Bay. So that alone right there just shows you that, it's a consistent grinds back and forth game. And it really, it just came down to, some luck, some good luck, a fumble here, a fumble there, a special teams touchdown. The San Fran team reminds me a lot of the Blake Bortles era Jacksonville Jaguars of a nice sound defense throughout. They had their guys like Calais Campbell and Jalen Ramsey. They don't have a star cornerback, San Fran, but they have an overall really good secondary that works together well. The D-line's good, and they have that good rookie running back like Leonard Fournette. And they got guys like Samuel and Ayuk, which is like an Allen Robinson, kind of guy. And I think Ayuk that he could be. They got their tight ends, and they got a quarterback that's like, below 20s, like Bortles at the time. So I think they could, tear it up a little bit and cause some chaos. So I'm excited.
Tough, because Blake Bortles was at one. I don't know now, but he definitely was the one of the backups for Aaron Rodgers this season. So
yeah,
comes to haunt him again. Oh man! And Alex, did you were you impressed, decompressed, or a mixture of both coming into this game and what you saw?
Well, to be transparent, I had my cousin, his best buddy, fanatical Niners fans to the left of me, and we were all having some cocktails. So it was a fun Saturday night. No, I did the game. I mean, once I got the weather report and I knew that the temperatures were we all knew temperatures were going to drop, but the precipitation was going to affect this game in some form or fashion. I expected a little more on the ground game between Debo and Mitchell for San Fran, but I basically expected a low scoring game once I saw the forecast. I thought San Fran just made one or two extra plays, like kind of like Bryan mentioned, a lot of punts, a lot of special teams that really took San Francisco over the top in the second half. Neither quarterback was stellar. I thought the defenses really showed out as they should in inclement weather, but I thought, Kittle made a few huge third down catches that continued some drives for them to burn up and chew more clock in the second half. And if you look at the front four for San Francisco, they combined for 17 tackles, 3 assists, and 2 sacks just from Armstead alone. So they really kind of collapsed the pocket. Yeah, they really collapsed the pocket and put pressure on Rodgers in the second half. And, if you look at the tape for Green Bay, a lot of this stuff was, tailor-made for the kind of game that they have. Between Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, they only combined for 66 yards total as a team. That's just pathetic. And you knew it had to be a ground game with the weather involved. I thought that while, Jones and Devontae had huge games in the air, I thought that Aaron kind of forced a few too many balls to Devontae when he had Allen Lazard on a few crossing routes, notably in the middle of the field, that he could have hit to continue drives, but I felt like they force-fed Devontae a little too much in the second half. So, I think that what it comes down to watching this game was San Francisco just took advantage of the opportunities given. They won on all three phases of the game, particularly special teams, and I think that ground game is what's going to sustain them in the second round when they have a grunge match with the Rams.
Yeah, I gotta say I didn't see this coming. I really thought the Green Bay Packers were gonna pull this off overall, but this, and it's weird to call it a Cinderella story because this team just keeps winning and winning, but they weren't really highly thought of, at least coming into this season. And it's all about being hot at the right time when you're San Francisco. And also some awful drops from the weapons in the Packers game. I really think also I think it was Lewis who had that really bad drop during the fourth quarter, making that comeback. But yeah, I just obviously can't win if you can't catch the ball.
And real quick too, before we move on, they noted it a little bit in the pregame and a lot of the pressers throughout the week leading up to the game, especially with more of the analysis-driven football shows and on the morning casts, that Green Bay special teams unit is very, very susceptible and vulnerable, and that was a huge concern for LaFleur and that coaching staff throughout the week. And I think that Kyle Shanahan had those guys buttoned up and ready to go, and understood that a ball here or there was going to change that game. So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, and like we said, look at that block punt official. It shows you exactly what you're talking about, and it turned to a nightmare, and that just killed momentum. So, last thing to talk here, which will be obviously a topic conversation for a while. The first player we'll talk about, is he staying or going with Aaron Rodgers after the most controversial single season off the field, at least for Aaron Rodgers and a quarterback, one of the most controversial off the field, next to the ones who've done crimes, but only he just didn't take a shot and lied about it. But anyways, Aaron Rodgers caused a lot of stir, but yet had another MVP caliber season. And now we see what happens from here on out. He finished his final Pat McAfee Tuesday appearance, and he said, pretty much just paraphrasing, that he doesn't know what he's doing, but he'll make a decision at least before the free agency period begins, because he thought that wouldn't be fair, and it is. I know Aaron Rodgers at least under contract for another season, and we'll see. Is he retiring? Is he going to be a game show host? Will he go to another team in another conference, like in the Steelers or Denver? Or are they going to get rid of him in conference? Well, also the Raiders to another possibility. I mean, say the 49ers make a push again, does he go to San Fran anyways? Lots of possibilities, but this is probably the closest we'll talk about what he's going to do before he actually makes his decision, assuming he's keeping his word. So I'll ask you guys out there, where do we see Aaron Rodgers going from here on out? What's the next move for him after this very tough, hard pill to swallow loss?
I could see an even playing field between either Denver, Miami, or Pittsburgh, but I think all three are options that are viable on the table. But if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I can't really wrap my head around and fathom the idea of leaving Green Bay, just simply because of the roster that they've constructed around him.
Yeah,
I know people want to bash and make Gutekunst the scapegoat in that front office, but they've done a tremendous job not only sacrificing their future plans, but also giving him the requisite pieces and giving into the desires and the things that he's demanded over the years in order to win. I think they fulfilled that prophecy for Rodgers. I just don't think that him going another place is going to correct his shortcomings in the postseason. I think he needs to take a lot of this on the chin.
Because we know he's done it already. What do you say?
I agree with Alex. I think, I think Rodgers will stay, but I agree that there's still a team that if he stays, there will still be a good team for him to play with. I just think he'll have one more year with the Packers, and he'll either retire after next year or he'll leave once when his contract is up.
Do you feel the same way, Brian, or different?
So in my eyes, there's a few options. I'll start with the organization first. If I'm them in a Green Bay, I know that 2023, his contract's voided. So this is 1 year left. In my eyes, he's probably going to leave or retire after that year, just based on if this goes bad again. Why not trade him and get value? He's an MVP guy every year. If he goes to a place, like Denver, he could probably win a ring. You want to send him out of the conference. Why not trade him and get value? You have Jordan Love. You get a few picks. You get get a receiver, build up that O-line a little bit more. You could do that. And then there's also the option of Aaron Rodgers saying, I could retire and go off and play Jeopardy in the sunset. But you also have the option for him, which what I would do if I was him, I'd play in Green Bay one season, go all out again, try to, recruit some free agents. And if it doesn't work out again in 2023, if Tom Brady decides to play one more season and retires, why not walk into the Buccaneers as a free agent with all those wide receivers and weapons, with a guy like Bruce Arians and a defense ready to win another Super Bowl? Go from a loaded team to a loaded team just because of an aging out quarterback in Tom Brady.
Yeah, you would get the same type of quarterback, just a little younger. Tommy, I saw you had a big smile on your face for that.
Oh, that's interesting. I never really thought about that. That could be a possibility.
It would make sense. But if he stays in Green Bay, I think a main thing that they have to do is he has to have a humbling situation and realize this. When he won a Super Bowl, they had a really good running team, very good running team. And he wasn't forced to make spectacular throws. Once he got that big contract after the Super Bowl, he became the ego guy of, I want to throw the ball 30, 40 times a game. And you could see in the postseason, yes, he has the ability to extend, make those throws, make those crazy plays, be an MVP level. But what if he just settles back more and they go more run heavy, and with a good defense, and they actually have more time of possession? If you look at his time of possession over the years, they continues to decrease because he throws the ball more. Go back to the way you won a Super Bowl, which was having a very strong running game, and then having the ability for him to make those throws, because he doesn't have to do it all. I think that's the issue with Aaron Rodgers. He tries to do it all.
Oh, sorry. Just to respond to that. I mean, yes, of course, that's the obvious answer. That is just to pivot your style and approach to that offense. But again, this is Aaron Rodgers. It's not Tom Brady. It's not Peyton Manning, guys who are willing to sacrifice later in their career to adapt to an offense. I think his ego is up here, and I think the organization is way down here. And I think that optimistic thinking would say absolutely he could pivot right into this and contribute to a better, well-run offense and team as a whole. But I just think it's hard to teach old dog new tricks.
I agree on that.
Yeah, I feel that at the end of the day, it's going to be his ego making the decision all in all, because if he was humble to start with, this whole crazy year wouldn't have started when he said he's thinking or he's not happy. So I say Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to say, I think he's going to just hang it up. He doesn't know. I think in his ego sense, does he need to prove anything? He's obviously a first ballot Hall of Famer. He does have the Super Bowl, albeit that's now 12 years ago. I feel that the vibes I get that, he just wants to go focus on the next phase of his life. At least that's what I get with these decisions and stuff. But I definitely hope that's not the case. I'd like to see him try one more time too.
Do you think? Sorry, I was just going to say, do you think any of his contingency plans has to do with what Brady does this offseason? Like if Brady retires, do you think that he follows suit or that he makes his moves accordingly?
No, I think he's making a pure Aaron Rodgers decision, and there's no other quarterback's going to dictate that. I really think that's the case. Like whether he gets it at Jeopardy, even though I think that's long gone with that host they really like in Marion Bylock, or they create a whole new show for him. The game show that takes over the airways or something, or he becomes like a Joe Rogan commentator. Like, we know for a fact that he will be in Austin, Texas at some point this offseason for them to talk and say, look at all these haters against this type of pod, which I would love. But I really think that Aaron Rodgers is making a solely Aaron Rodgers decision, and he just doesn't care.
Because I think the only refuting to that is, think about the train of thought though. Like if Brady does retire, or if he does retire, there's really not a lot of superpowers in the NFC to really compete with. The AFC is stacked with all these 10-year quarterbacks that are going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. You got Herbert, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. You got all these teams and all these high power offenses you're going to have to deal with. And I don't know if him going to Miami, Pittsburgh, any of the names we've mentioned, is going to Denver, if those are going to be an answer in the cards for him. I think, let's say Brady does retire and hang it up, like, he may have the green light in that conference.
Yeah, you would think that he'd recognize that, but he's an enigma. He's really unpredictable.
Right.
That's where I think it's hard to gauge what's going on.
Let me mention this. In 2023, the free agents for quarterbacks will be Kirk Cousins, Garoppolo, Matt Stafford, Tom Brady, Derek Carr, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. So you have a lot of teams opening, like the Browns. You have the Bucks. You have the Rams. It's a possibility that he might just see, San Fran if Trey Lance doesn't pan out, because he's going to be the QB next year. There's a lot of possibilities for Rodgers right now that he might just wait it out another year and just see what happens.
True.
Yeah, you think. The only thing Tommy once told me this, that he once admitted he doesn't throw a pass during the off season up until training camp. It was a while ago that he said that.
That on McAfee, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I think, like, does this guy care enough about football? He's not even training. And look how good he is. You could be an MVP without training. He's the equivalent Mickey Mantle in baseball, who didn't take care of his body. And I think definitely he takes it much better than he would in the 60s. But, if you don't practice your own craft, you can only go so far. And yet that just shows how gifted some of these athletes are. So we'll see what time will tell with Aaron Rodgers. And we'll just have the trolls and all the new football fans that I noticed over on Twitter this weekend have something to say about Aaron Rodgers. And that's why he's a very interesting character, because he does just spark conversations. So anyways, so let's get to it on the Sunday, where you had this epic game. At first, we thought it was going to be the only blowout of the weekend. And then Tom Brady did Tom Brady things. And yet 42 seconds was just enough time for Matt Stafford to get his team in a field goal range, leading to a game-winning field goal by Matt Gay. And the Rams win 30-27, pull off the upset against Tampa Bay. Obviously, we pretty much hit on the heels with what we think of Tom Brady. At least we were starting that conversation. But let's, again, just table that really quickly. Just focus on this game right here. This would have been some game if we talked about, the Rams blowing it. Probably Sean McVay would not be looked at as this prodigy anymore. But, sometimes the ball really does flow your way, and it really did. And when, you had Matt Stafford in his first playoff win, finally, the man throws over 366 yards, 2 touchdowns, 28 for 33. We had Cam Akers again, pushing that ball down the field. Another great game from Odell. Cooper Kupp, you knew that from those deep receptions he had throughout the game that, man, this guy should honestly be the MVP. I mean, he really carried his team as a wide receiver. And then a slow start kills the Buccaneers, and they just literally ran out of time. But again, when Tom Brady throws 329 yards himself, when you had Leonard Fournette throwing down the ball, and then Mike Evans being Mike Evans, it was a game to remember for sure. But again, before we go focus on Tom Brady in this game as a whole, what do you think is the big takeaway from this epic matchup in Tampa Bay?
Well,
Matt
I
Staff,
said,
you go.
oh,
You go
sorry.
first, Dave.
Okay. I said last week, in order for the Rams to continue to win, is get their best players the ball. Cooper Kupp did what he had to do. Matt Stafford didn't turn over the ball. Odell played good. The only negative was Cam Akers fumbling the ball 4 times. But hats off to the Rams getting it done. They just got to clean up the run game for them coming in next week.
I think this game. Oh yeah, sorry, you can tell me. My bad.
Oh, I was just saying, big moves were made throughout.
Yeah. Game was my favorite game I watched of the early afternoons since the playoffs began, and I just feel that Matt Stafford has finally like gone over that like hump of like he has confidence now. And I don't know if it's just the McVay having like an offensive minded guy like McVay, who's absolutely brilliant in his ear. I don't know if it's that he hasn't, fantastic receivers and there's just confidence all around. And maybe it's the air and sun in Los Angeles, but whatever it is, he's been drinking the Kool-Aid and it's going off really well. I think this playoffs and the last, let's say 5-6 games of the Rams season has also really shown to me that Odell Beckham was not washed at all. And it just is an indictment on Baker Mayfield of how bad of a quarterback he is.
I told Matt that.
Yeah, because this man is balling out and he isn't a locker room problem, as Matt Stafford and a bunch of players are saying. I think it just comes down to he might be a little misunderstood because he's sort of a wide receiver diva, but his numbers are fantastic right now. He's, besides Cooper Kupp being like the reliable, flashy player that he is, he's really looking for Odell Beckham a lot now, and he has confidence in him. And as long as I see, Stafford going through his progressions and not just targeting Cooper Kupp, which is always a fear in my eyes when you have such a receiver like that, like with Rodgers and Devontae Adams. As long as you continue that progression and trust your other receivers, I don't see them not winning in the conference championship and going to the Super Bowl.
Can you imagine if Green Bay or Tampa took Odell when he was around?
Could have been a totally different world.
Seriously.
Oh, sorry, guys. Don't want any dead air. My bad. No, I think you guys pretty much covered everything I was going to mention. I thought that going into this game, I thought Matt Stafford had to be essentially a game manager with a few extra throws, and I thought that they were going to lean heavily on that defense of the front four to make Brady uncomfortable, and that's pretty much what they did from kickoff. I thought that Tampa looked a little flat out the gates. We knew that they were banged up. We knew that they were injured and a little hamstrung with their weapons. And they just didn't come prepared from kickoff. I thought that they dug themselves quite a hole. And the only reason they got close in the second half was because there were a few consecutive turnovers. And I felt that Brady was really, really immaculate in the passing game, catching up to speed. I thought that, between Evans and Gronk, they both had huge days, 8 for 119 for Evans and Gronk had 4 for 85. And that was mostly on cleanup duty in the second half, but they really took advantage of things in the second half. But Von Miller and Aaron Donald were really the story all the way through 4 quarters. They both combined for 6 tackles, 3 assisted and 2 sacks. And then you get another additional sack from Leonard Floyd and 2 tackles. I think between the 3 of them and their front four as a whole, I thought that they kept Tampa's offense on their heels. And I thought that they put a lot of pressure on Vita Vea and Ryan Jensen coming back from injury, not being 100%. They executed the game plan. I thought that McVay through 4 quarters pretty much outcoached against Arians, and it was just a little too late when it came to the end of the game. I thought Cooper Kupp was unbelievable front to back. He had a monster day, and they kind of just did what they had to do. It wasn't really a shock to me. I knew that they had the firepower from when we talked pregame. I felt that Rams on paper were overmatched, and I wasn't sure if Stafford was going to shine, but he did. He lived up to expectations, and this is what they paid him for.
Yeah, especially the 2-minute drill. I think that's the most valuable thing, that he didn't let the pressure get to him, and he did this on the road. And I mean, what more momentum can you ask for? This Rams team, after going to the Super Bowl just 2 years prior, and all it took, the roster essentially the same. You had Jalen Ramsey, big deal. Von Miller, another big deal, and they were real contributors on the defensive side of the ball this whole postseason so far. And I mean, Von Miller got a fumble recovery in the game. I mean, wow, that guy did not miss a beat after he was like in hibernation for the Broncos. And random fun fact, the Broncos haven't made the postseason in 6 seasons. I thought that was crazy. Just noticed that. But anyways,
Oh wow.
Von Miller, big. It shows this could be the game changing, the season changing, off season move. And yeah, you just add a couple of assets on defense, keep the line better, and add even better weapons. Obviously, Odell's better than Brandon Cooks. Cooper Kupp was the constant, but he just evolved. He literally went from, I can't believe I forget this, Squirtle to Blastoise almost. He really evolved essentially like that. And then you have, this is as good as it gets. They miss Roy Woods.
Higbee too.
Yeah, Tyler Higbee, one of the most underrated tight ends in the game. The Rams stepped up and they end Tom Brady's season, and we're definitely getting a new Super Bowl champion this season. So speaking of that, Alex, you started that conversation with, what Brady's going to do. I guess now what we have updated so far from that podcast is that it's going to be a big family decision. Some of the things on the table include the major cap hit the Buccaneers would get if he retires early, which I think is like $40 million. They really don't have much of a contingency plan right now. Under contract 1 more season. Tom Brady said that he wouldn't necessarily announce if he had a farewell tour, but I think he's coming back for 1 more season. He won't say like, this is my last season. He won't Derek Jeter it or Kobe it or Mariano Rivera. He'll just go about it. And, if he wins the Super Bowl, go out with number 8, or if he's gone, then he accomplished his goal playing until 45. Who would have thought that felt like only, 100 years ago, and we're about to be here. So what else do we guys think about Tom Brady's decision after what I mentioned, if he's coming or going?
No, I actually think the opposite of you, Matt. I think, Brady, he is the greatest player this sport has ever seen. I don't think a player like that is just gonna say, all right, that's been a career. I think he'll play his last year and have a farewell tour. You see he's big on social media. He posts all these that sometimes are funny, sometimes are like really cool edits, or like all these like just social media videos. And I think he'll post something saying that this is the last one, and will be like a farewell tour for him.
And every ticket will be $3,000 to start.
Probably.
I think it depends really on how the Bucks go about the offseason, what free agents stay, what go. If they could add, another receiver, which would be nice, just like a third option, because you have Godwin, you have Evans. What's the standing with Fournette and Ronald Jones? How's that offensive line is good, but can we get it better? And can we keep that defense intact? Because right now, they're a great team, though, that, with that division now, especially with Sean Payton stepping away, it's up for grabs in my eyes, because I don't see the Falcons or the Panthers making any splashes. So in my eyes, that might actually become the worst division in the league, and replace the one with, just with the AFC West, not West, AFC South. So I think that, this, he might stay for another one. Also, a big thing on him is, he wants to expand his, career outside of football, like with Brady brand. And since that came out mid-season, I think he might want to do a full season of Brady brand merch, having wearing that to get more exposure, advertisements and stuff like that, because he is a smart businessman. So I could see him, continue to, that's a little small asterisk of why to stay. But Nick Wright made a really good comment today on Brady about like his family and stuff like that. If he retires in 5 years or he retires in 7 years right now, say he played to like 50 or something like that, he's retiring earlier than 99% of most people retire in their lifetime ever. So I really don't think he's really worried about family. I think it's more or less like, okay, let's see what's going on right now. Do I want to, go off into the sunset, or I just want to cut it short and, not do anything, no farewell tour. So, I think he's going to definitely think about it because, he is like in year 23 and he hasn't really had a big injury since that ACL. So he's probably saying, all right, something's due soon. I'm getting old. I took a lot of hits. So we'll see.
Yeah. The sad reality is he's just one hit away.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I guess, that really does have to pan out, whether it's for PR saying that or he just wants to chill. Like, this is only the second time in literally about 10 years that he's not playing in a conference championship game. So he's not really used to going out this early, but maybe he just finally could chill, have the spotlight on this new generation. And we got the best of the new generation on Sunday night, where we saw a game that I think history will look at as one of the greatest ever played. And I mean, what can I say that that everyone hasn't added to? You had Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen, and they made their mark. Now, final score in overtime, 42-36. The Chiefs are back in the AFC Championship for now the fourth consecutive season. And I mean, no one will ever forget the final 2 minutes, 24 points in 2 minutes. And when Josh Allen made a stellar drive down the field, you really would have thought that 13 seconds would be enough, but it wasn't. Too much time on the clock. They kick it to him, they kick it into the end zone, and we could debate in a couple of seconds whether they should have squibbed it, keep it in bounds or what, but either or, it was enough time for Patrick Mahomes to get down to field goal range, and they kick it. And then we have the coin toss, and then that's another ruckus that we could complain about in a couple seconds as well. How do you do the overtime rules? But either or, the defense could have stopped them, but they didn't. And ultimately, a Travis Kelce 8-yard touchdown reception leads to the big win. So, I mean, where do we even start with this game? We talk about Josh Allen becoming a lead. We talk about Patrick Mahomes being legendary. And I really think that Buffalo Bills fans would not be sleeping for a week. The Bills Mafia is on insomnia watch at this point.
Oh, don't worry. They're not, because I lived with one of them.
Oh, the pain.
It's been rough.
Yeah, I mean, geez. Gabriel Davis, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce again. I mean, you can't get any better offensively than that. So just what are you guys' initial thoughts thinking of this game when they talk about that AFC divisional matchup 2022? What are you guys thinking? What do you take out of this game?
No, you said the saying, these are where these games are where legends are made of. And on Sunday night, I think Josh Allen showed that he's going to be a legend in this league. And Mahomes versus Allen is going to be a showdown for the making, and they're going to be the new Brady and Brady versus Manning in this generation.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, you couldn't say it any better, man. This was just special to watch, straight up special. And so, what you were saying?
You want to go, Brian? You want me to go?
You go first.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we all saw what we saw, and it was just like an unbelievable matchup between two amazing offenses. I don't think we can kid ourselves about it. I thought it made itself apparently clear, like it was fate that this was going to be a shootout from the opening kickoff, because Tyrann Mathieu got literally hurt the first quarter, and I was like, oh God, it was brutal, and I was like, this is just gonna be a freaking bloodbath through the air and on the ground. Yeah, I mean, Tyreek was Tyreek, Kelsey was Kelsey. They were unbelievable. Pat Mahomes was unbelievable. Josh Allen. Yeah, this is where these are going to be the two quarterbacks in the AFC to run the show for the next 8 to 10 years, and I couldn't be more excited about it. And I like that we're at a point where the conference is more competitive than it's ever been, and that these two guys are the poster children for it. I think that they reflect where the NFL is going with the passing game being as elite as it is, and having all the weapons requisite, the faces surrounding the team in that manner. But I just thought that there was a lot of things that kind of took me back by surprise with both Buffalo and Kansas City. I thought that Stephon Diggs was nowhere to be found. He got blanketed, and I don't really know
7 yards.
Yeah, unbelievable. And everybody knew going in that he was the number one guy, completely healthy. Didn't understand that at all. Singletary and McKenzie only combined for 41 yards on the ground. I mean, look, they've always been running back by committee, but 41 total rushing yards. Can't have that. Yeah, Gabriel Davis had a miraculous game through and through from the beginning to the end, but it just made them one-dimensional completely from the opening kickoff. I thought that put a little too much extra pressure on Buffalo to execute. I think Kansas City, it's tough because I've never been a guy that's like the first guy up on the podium saying we need to reform this rule and we need to reform that rule. But I'll tell you what, it just sucks having to watch the game end the way it did. And I thought that Kansas City had a case to be made in 2019 when they lost at Brady's Patriots in the AFC Championship game. I thought they had a case then, and I still think that Buffalo has a case now, because it's hard to ask. It's one thing to end a game in that manner in overtime during the regular season, but when it's for all the marbles, you got to make some reformational changes. It's inevitable. It has to happen. There's too much. The stakes are on the line. Careers are on the line. Because we don't know what the outcome of this is going to be. Brian Daboll could be gone next year. The offense could be totally different, despite all of this and what changed. Even with a masterful showcase that was the offense of Buffalo. So I think that they're going to have to look at this. They're going to have to make tweaks and changes to it. I mean, the simple answer would be to just give the team that loses the kickoff, give them a chance to score a touchdown, and then you go from there. But it was just an unbelievable game. It was just sad to see it and the way it did.
Okay, definitely want to hit on that in a few minutes. But Brian, you have anything else to add on this initial game?
Sorry, that was all over the place.
I couldn't agree more with Alex. Like, I think overtime, I've never liked the idea of overtime, of that, coin toss win and a score, it's done for a touchdown. Like, I just don't really see how that's like a real depiction of the game, of the other four quarters. Like in the NBA, you play a shortened version of another quarter, right? Why can't they play, instead of 15 minutes, 7.5? I don't understand, if it's about time or commercial time and you don't want to pay ads and stuff like that. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't do it. I think it would be a smart idea. You would get more, it'd be a lot more interesting. It'd be a lot more fair to both teams that work. Maybe do that for just the playoffs, maybe during the regular season, have it just be the usual shootout kind of thing. Because it's not really fair to the teams. You got to also remember, by the time it's overtime, defenses are fatigued, especially in a high scoring offense game like this. Defenses are running around all over the place. You have one drive. It's very hard on a defense at that point. They're gassed. So I think you need to give the option to the other team to at least try to score. But I mentioned this to you earlier in the week. I think this was the passing of the torch game of some like quarterbacks. You know what I mean? I think Mahomes has taken the Aaron Rodgers mantle of I could do absolutely anything and everything, minus the ego. We'll see. That might take some time. I
leave
think
that
Josh,
to the brother.
Yes, leave that to the brother.
And the
exactly.
fiance.
Yeah, but I also think that Josh Allen officially, in my eyes, solidified himself as the second coming of Brett Favre, a straight gunslinger with a cannon of an arm who does throw, has some nice turnovers, right? But I see Brett Favre when I watch him. He makes those out of nowhere sneaky slip out of the pocket and get a couple 20 yards on a pickup and stuff like that. And then bringing up another game before, I think Joe Burrow is the next Tom Brady in that type of style of play and that cerebral mind. So I think we see the passing of the torch of the young rookie QBs and the couple year veterans right now really cementing themselves as the next passing of the torch.
Yeah, I think that is a special thing. We'll always remember which was the big weekend that things transitioned to the other side. And so just to hit on those overtime rules too. So do you all vote that we should have, like you said in the NBA, just 10 minutes, go, whoever wins and leave it to regulation. And, we won't talk about, even though, hey, if you're tired, the defense, do it anyways, even if that is just, it'd be like that. Does anyone necessarily oppose that or keep it the way it has to be? I'm sure I'll throw it out there too, but we wouldn't want exactly the college overtime rules. That would be a little, amateurish almost with these professionals. But do you all want to see that with enough outcry?
I wouldn't say opposed, but definitely a system where you give both offenses and defenses a shot, or another an overtime chance where it's sudden death and best man wins for whatever they do. Either it's 7.5 minute quarter, or if you score, you got to score. If you score and don't score, then that person wins. So it should be interesting. I know Roger Goodell's term or contract ends in, I believe, 2 years. So hopefully the new commissioner, whoever it is, can maybe change some rules with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just I'm an equal representation kind of guy. You got to give all 4 phases of this game an opportunity to play in the overtime. And when I say 4 phases, I mean like the offense and defense of both teams. So I just think that if you give all 4 units a crack at it, I think that's the fairest way to resolve this.
Hear that. And the last thing with this game, then we'll talk about our picks for this upcoming Sunday. When it came to the kickoff, like I said, 13 seconds to go, kick it in the end zone, clock never moved, starting on their 25. And like I said, they gave enough, they oddly gave Mahomes enough time to get down to the field. And it helps when you have Tyreek Hill's legs going. He made the big reception that game deep. And then, we obviously know what happens. Do you feel they messed up with that kick? Should have been more of a squib, keep a couple seconds off, even if, as soon as the ball hits the ground, depending on, the situation, sure, the someone on the receiving team could have kneeled it or whatever. Do we feel that kick should have been different, or, they did what they had to do and they just had the better team win?
There's always the debate that, kick it out of the end zone, it goes to the 25-yard line and you have the time left. It's a little hard just to be able to be accurate enough as a kicker to maybe squib or pooch it and try to get it within the, 10 yards, the first 10 yards of the field. So it's a little difficult to do. In those kind of situations, I think they did the right thing, but it would have been interesting to see if, let's say, they kicked it and 4 or 5 seconds came off and they're at the 30 or 35-yard line. Because in that kind of situation, it might just be one pass, get them not at the boundary or something like that. It might help. It's also just unlucky that they had their timeouts left and stuff like that. So, it's hard to really depict and stuff like that. But who expects someone to score in 13 seconds when Dak Prescott can't even, do a QB draw and kneel in 14. So it's a little difficult. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
It really shows that it's a game of inches. It really determines on, I think it could have gone either way. They could have tested to see, it could have gone somewhere else other than the 25, but yeah, it's a game of inches. It could have gone either way.
I think that if you're Is the guy's name Leslie Frazier, the defensive coordinator?
Yes, Leslie Frazier.
Yeah. I think if you're Leslie Frazier and you're figuring out that situational possession at the end of the game, you have to kick it where it's encroaching on the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 yard line, somewhere in
Yeah.
that range. You can't kick it in the end zone because you don't run time off, and you can't run the risk of a squib kick, because the probability that it runs out of bounds and you advance the ball even further is too great a risk. So I just think that you got to pin them deep, and then you got to micromanage the field. You got to get them to throw to the, you got to get those crossing routes in the center of the field. I know it's hard to take away both Kelsey and Tyreek, but you got to make it hard for him where he's got to force the ball to Nico Hardman or Clyde Edwards-Helaire or somebody.
Hit that sky kick. Well, so sadly gonna be another what if. But all in all, we were in for a treat. The Bills, even though this is a gut-wrenching loss, they're gonna be a force to be reckoned with in the AFC as long as they have Sean McDermott and Josh Allen out there. And then, Mahomes being Mahomes, and we can just hit it right away with the AFC Championship. Let's talk about these picks, guys. First, 3:00 Sunday afternoon on CBS. Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals are going to Kansas City to play Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Right now, the spread's at 7. Quite a spread. So let me throw it out there. Where do we see this game going? If you are the Bengals, how do you beat the Chiefs? If you're the Chiefs, how do you beat the Bengals? What do you guys think? And throw a final score out there as well. We'll start with Brian on this one.
I see a Bengals W in the sense of this. Yep. Titans sacked Joe Burrow 9 times. And I know for a fact the Chiefs defense cannot do that. Tyrann Mathieu has a concussion, so we don't know if he's going to be cleared. And if you think about the Bills offense, right? Well, let's look at the defense of the Bengals, right? Defense of the Bengals is probably a few knocks down from, the Bills, but they're still a good defense and they do make plays. The Bengals offense, right, has better receivers than the Bills. They have a better running back than the Bills, and they might have a slightly less quarterback and offensive line than the Bills. But the quarterback has the ability to overcome the obstacle that is their offensive line, as seen in the Tennessee Titans game. So in my eyes, it's going to be a very similar game to Bills Chiefs, and I think it's going to end up going down to a 38-35 Bengals win on a field goal.
38-35. Okay. Brian, I actually think my heart really wants the Bengals to win, and I think they can win as long as they keep running the ball and Joe Mixon has a better game. I think if they can make sure that the Chiefs get more turnovers and more turnovers on defense for the Bengals, they can, I think that was a big emphasis for the Tennessee game. And if Burrow stays strong with, again, all the weapons he has in a Jamar Chase and a Tyler Boyd and stuff like that, I do think it's going to be hard, and I will just do it just to be unique. And I think it's going to have to be a low-scoring game. I think it's more going to be like a 26-21 Bengals upset, and that's if the planets align, and I really think Zach Taylor and his coaching staff can make it that way. So, Tommy, which side do you think this is going?
I'm kind of with you on my heart wants the Bengals to win, but I truly think it'll be a high-scoring game. Pat Mahomes being his 4th straight AFC Championship at home, I think the Chiefs over the Bengals, 31-24.
Sweet. What do you have to say, Mr. Ranniello?
I'm going to take the counter position with my reality here. I mean, my heart definitely says the Bengals because I hate the Chiefs more than anything in the world besides cancer. But I think this is going to be actually a rout. I think every year, the past 3 or 4 years, I think we've gotten accustomed to whoever the AFC Championship opponent to the Chiefs is kind of that classic overachieving team that really breaks out and takes that second step that no one expected. And I think the Bengals are that prototype team. I think Buffalo was that team last year, and I think that Titans were the team the year before. And I thought that, but I think that the Chiefs are overly prepared. I think they're a well-oiled machine. I think they're rolling, and I got this game 34-21 Chiefs. I think that the Bengals just it's one of those things, like, it's a nice story, and it's been a great story all season. They've been winning tight games, and Joe Burrow's the future, and he's grown a lot. But I just think that they're up against it in this game, if I'm going to be realistic.
See that, hear that, and yeah, I think it's gonna. Is it if Joe Burrow can beat Patrick Mahomes at Arrowhead? That right there shows that this is one of the best damn players in the league. This is going to be one of the best teams in the league. And like I said, this Bengals team, a lot of people thought they were a year away, and they're here. Joe Burrow, remember, was injured. He tore his ACL just a year ago, and he's now playing in the AFC Championship, undefeated in the playoffs so far. So we see what we're excited about there. But hey, if Patrick Mahomes just lays a smack down on this team, and that stellar offense somehow breaks the holes of this defense, which they very well might be able to, I think it wouldn't necessarily be a surprise. But yeah, we're gonna see somebody make a huge impact. What's up, Brian?
I'll make this comment in my bold take of the game. If Tyrann Mathieu out, I would say that the key player to the game will be the Bengals tight end CJ Uzomah, because that defense is going to be looking at Higgins and Jamar Chase that entire game. And with him, the Matthew out, because he's probably going to be covering mainly the tight end. Watch for Uzomah and Boyd over the middle, trying to attack that linebacker, that middle of the field, and right in between the linebackers and the secondary. That's really going to be where Joe Burrow is going to have to make his money on those intermediate routes and crossing routes.
Zoom right there. Great take on that as always, Brian. So let's now talk about the NFC Championship. San Francisco's going down to SoFi Stadium to play the Los Angeles Rams. And with this spread, we're at a 3.5-point favorite in the LA Rams. What's going to happen? Is Jimmy G going to make his second Super Bowl in 3 years? Are the Rams going to make their return to the first Super Bowl in 4 years? Sorry, Jimmy G's first Super Bowl in 3 years, and the Rams their first Super Bowl in 4 years. Wait, yeah, I got that right. Semantics rage. Anyway, so bottom line, this team, one of these two teams are going to make a return to the big game. And if you're asking me, I think the Rams, this is their game to win. I think the magic of the 49ers is going to fall. And I think they will overtake that spread mightily. I think this team, with how stacked they are on paper, no major injuries on the team, I think it's going to be very difficult for people like a Deebo Samuel and a Craig Kittle to go up against such a intimidating secondary, with Von Miller playing like an MVP again. I think it's going to be hard for Deebo Samuel to lose a matchup against someone like a Jalen Ramsey. And then Matthew Stafford looks scary out there with all his weapons. I mean, this is going to be like, honestly, I think I'm going to go way over the spread. I think this team can beat this 49ers team 28-14. I really think they could put up points that they can stop Jimmy G and the 49ers offense.
I agree with you 100%. I also think it's very hard to beat a team 3 times in one season. 49ers beat them both. I also think it's going to depend on the health of Trent Williams. And I really don't see Garoppolo. Garoppolo has to do a full, 180 and throw for 3-4 touchdowns in this game for like 250. So it depends really on Shanahan. Maybe they go in with a completely different style of offense, which I could see them shaking it up and go right into passing and put it on Garoppolo a little bit in the first quarter just to see what he does. And then it could always fall back on the running game with Mitchell. But I just think there's too many weapons for an injured secondary throughout the season in the 49ers. And I just don't see the the offensive line of the 49ers being able to stop that front seven with the Rams. It's too hard. And with Trent Williams is out, Von Miller might have a Super Bowl 50 kind of game with some forced fumbles and a few sacks. So it really comes down to health and, actual, the intelligence of both coaches. Because this right here is the top two, in my eyes, the top two coaches in the NFL right now, in Shanahan and McVay. So it's really seeing what's going to happen with this.
Two young studs who were also once colleagues for the Redskins out of all team, now the Washington football team. Jay Gruden, who would have thought his tree could be the one? But stranger things have happened. What do you say, Tommy?
Like the AFC, my heart wants the 49ers to win, but you can, as you see, the Rams, they've been building up a super team the past couple of years, and it really shows that Matt Stafford was the final puzzle piece, bringing them to the NFC Championship his first year with the team. I think this will be the year they bring it. I have the Rams beating the 49ers 31-28.
31-28. And Brian, did you give a score?
No, I didn't give a score. I think the game will be 31-13 Rams.
31-14 Rams. You also
13. 31-13. Two field goals.
Right.
So I'm kind of between the two of you guys. I got the Rams winning 31-23 in a one possession game. Kind of like you said, Brian, I think it's really, really, really hard to beat a team 3 times in one season. I think there's a lot of questions with Trent Williams and his health. He was limping all game last weekend. I think that it's pretty clear at this point how to beat the 49ers. You gotta mitigate the run game with Mitchell and Debo and Aiyuk, and you gotta take away a lot of the stuff in the center of the field with Kittle. You gotta put all that weight on Jimmy G to make those big throws. With the Rams, they're enigmatic to the core. They can do a little bit of everything. They're a well-balanced team, and as long as Stafford gets out of his own way, I think that the sky's the limit with them. So I have them getting out to a lead comfortably and early. I think the 49ers make it a game in the second half just for the sake of competitiveness. I think that Shanahan makes some second half corrections in their approach, but I got the Rams winning, holding off 49ers on a final drive. So 31-23.
All right. So a nice split down the middle. So this reaction podcast next week will be interesting to see where it goes. But all right. With that,
Watch it be like 10-6.
yeah.
It's like, oh.
Or it's like 24-0. But it's gonna be a freaking awesome conference championship weekend. But like I said, thanks again, guys, as always. We'll be back. We'll talk about this a week from today, and then we'll solely react to it, and then we'll preview it the next week as we get ready for what should be an epic Super Bowl. So it's going to be a hell of a time, and let's us enjoy these games this weekend. So with that, Tommy Brown, Bryan McKeon, Alex Ranniello, thank you, gentlemen, as always, for another awesome postseason coverage show. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, bud.
Thanks, everyone.
Guys.
All right. See you later.